Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Noonchi podcast. I am so excited, thrilled actually about my guest. I think I say that for everybody, but I'm super excited about this one. Dialing in from Korea, Kdrama producer director Christine Ko. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Clap, virtual clap.
Clap. Yeah.
Super excited. No, and I know of law school, but I know you've done more. So we'll talk about it and break it down. But I do want folks to hear a little bit about who you are to start. That's a big question, but your journey starting from when you got into or how you got into being a PD. PD, by the way, guys, producer director, as I said. So now you know what that abbreviation stands for. So super excited to talk all about K culture and K dramas and more. So let's start, Christine, with who you are. Tell us a little bit about how you got started in this field, which everyone's fascinated.
Oh God, I'm terrible with introductions, but I'm Christine, and I'm a producer director at JTBC Studios. I think we're changing our name pretty soon. It's not going to be JTBC Studios anymore. It's going to be Studio Lululala or something. I think it's Lululala, but we're changing it so that
sounds fun.
Yeah, it sounds fun. I think it's supposed to sound happy and fun and creative, and because we're trying to break out of the mold. We're not just doing shows for JTBC. We can do stuff for Netflix or HBO or Disney or just Apple or whatever we kind of want to expand. So I think that's why we're changing the name.
I love it.
But that's where I work right now, and I've been producing K dramas for 6 years now. I started originally got into the network working as a variety show producer director. So I did a lot of that stuff, the entertainment stuff. And then I moved into scripted in 2016. Before that, my parents were in the industry. So I'm an industry kid, as cliche as that is, but they did variety shows, and my mom was a choreographer. And so I kind of grew up around set, and I grew up around music shows and all that stuff. So that's kind of how I was exposed to it at an early age. I never saw myself doing anything else other than this, or I wanted to be a film director originally. So I always told my parents I want to go to film school. And this was really early on. I think I found a kind of a dream journal that I wrote in, I want to say 5th grade in Vancouver. It was one of my first assignments that I did in English. And it says something like, "Hi, I'm Christine. I'm 30 years old. I live in Beverly Hills, and I'm a film director."
That is so funny. Now,
right.
you're not quite 30 yet, I'm assuming?
No, I'm 30. I'm 31. No,
31.
American age. I'm 31. So
but
I'm not quite.
You're directing K dramas.
Right. I'm not quite living in Beverly Hills, but
that's okay.
It's pretty close, right? So
yeah, cool.
I mean, that's kind of how early on I wanted to do it. And then in college, I wanted to go to film school for university, but my parents were like, "Well, no, you should. You've always wanted to do just that one thing, so maybe you should try and expand. You don't know what you're going to learn in college, and things change." So I did think about maybe wanting to become a psychiatrist, because I liked counseling people, and I majored in psychology. So I figured I could do anything with a psychology degree, but also nothing. It's kind of one of those degrees where you can do anything, but also not be able to do anything really.
Yeah.
But I think it was really useful for me. And then I started doing theater and film minor courses, and I was in the student broadcasting thing. I gravitated towards that just naturally, even though I was studying other things. So after all that, I was like, I have to at least give this a shot. I'm going to regret it if I just go to law school or med school and just do that. And let me just take a year. So I moved out to LA for a year and just interned at places like production companies, and I wanted to get into agencies, but I'm a Korean citizen, so it wasn't very easy to get sponsored as with the work visa stuff. So I was like, okay, I'll just go back to Korea. And I don't know if you know this, but all the networks here have an entrance exam if you want to become a producer director.
I did not know that. OMG, so Korean. No, I'm kidding.
It is very Korean.
An entrance exam? You have to pass it?
Yeah. So I don't know if you know, but a lot of the conglomerates here, like Samsung or LG or whatever big company you want to work for, they have their own aptitude test. It's kind of like the SATs, but for every company. Okay. So you kind of have to study a different.
Maybe not work in Korea. No, I'm kidding. But oh my gosh.
Definitely. Okay, yeah. If you don't have any sort of work experience and you're just starting out, they want you to take this exam, and I don't know what it's for. I think I'm not quite sure what it's
Test
testing,
like
but
math skills and English skills?
no, it's not really math. They're kind of like IQ tests a little bit. It depends on the company also.
Yeah.
So when I took the exam for NBC, they change their exams every year. So you don't really know what questions they're going to give you. But the year that I took it, it was like a Korean culture and history exam. It was like a Korean history exam straight up. And I was not educated here because I went to school in Vancouver and I went to college at Duke. So my Korean education stopped in the 7th grade.
Oh,
so I opened the exam book. I was like, I can't take this exam. So I pretty much guessed, I think, most of the questions. So I knew I was going to fail that one. But JTBC was more like the LSATs. It was a lot of like logic games, and it was kind of like an IQ test in a way.
You could think things through, like rationally think. Okay,
yeah. And I didn't know that I was going to pass because I barely studied for it. I had no time because I was already working on an NBC drama, K-drama. It was called Miss Korea. It was really old.
It's great. Oh, you got accepted at NBC then?
No, it was like it was kind of, that one was like on a 2-year contract.
I see. Okay.
So I don't know if you've seen like a lot of Korean TV shows where they talk about what it means to be like a 정규직. I don't know what that is in English. Do you know My Mister? My Mister?
Yes, of course.
Korean drama. Yeah. Where the male and female protagonist, she wants to become she wants to work there and have a good, like, solid contract where she's allowed to
like a salaried employee, like a permanent employee, salary.
Right, permanent employee. Right.
I see. Okay, gotcha.
So I was on a contract. I was one of those contract employees at NBC where you sign a contract for 2 years and you can work there for 2 years. So I was doing that. I was like, let me just get experience anyway, and I can study in my free time and keep applying to be a permanent employee. But I was working at NBC, but I passed the exam at JTBC, so I quit there.
Gotcha.
It was like the last episode of Miss Korea, and it was the day that the last episode was airing was my final interview here, so it kind of like works out really well.
Yeah. That's good.
So that's how I ended up here.
Oh my gosh, but I'm glad you shared that. Taking an entrance exam, folks, to be a PD.
I studied for it for a year. I studied for like all the different ones, and to apply to KBS, you have to have a certain level of a Korean aptitude test. Like they have a KBS made Korean aptitude test, like Korean language.
Oh my gosh. So that,
but the Korean language,
it rules out, to be honest, then people like me, Korean Americans.
If you want to be a permanent employee producer, it's kind of hard.
Yeah.
So I literally took a whole year just to study for that kind of aptitude test. I think I was just in my room for 3-4 months because I hadn't learned any of this stuff. And Korean is really hard. Korean is really hard language, right?
That's like giving me some anxiety. Wow. Okay. This doesn't surprise me, but still, well, that actually makes me appreciate more not like I didn't appreciate what you did. Obviously, being a PD is super cool, but it's not just you just apply and you get in. You got to have some brains.
Right. No, for us, it was, I think we had 1,800 applicants for 5 spots at JTBC.
Oh my gosh. Well, congratulations that you got
that. I mean, it's mostly luck because, their exams change every year, and the prompt they give you. So you take the exam, and the next part of the exam is they give you a prompt and they want you to make a show, like on the spot. They want you to kind of outline a show that you're going to make based on this prompt.
Wow.
It can be scripted, it can be unscripted, it can be whatever, it can be a documentary. You just have to come up with it kind of on the spot.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
But it so happened that the night before, my mom and I were just like throwing ideas back and forth, and I was like, this is kind of like a key word in our culture right now. It's kind of like trendy. It was kind of about middle-aged people and midlife crises a little bit. It was a lot of when those variety shows were introducing like middle-aged, like newly single people, and them, right. So I was like, oh, this might be one of those topics. And I had my mom and I outlined a sitcom kind of based on 6 middle-aged people living in this neighborhood, and that was the prompt that I got the next day. So I think it was lucky.
You're right, that's luck, but still you're prepared. That's super cool. That's exciting. So that was, like you said, 6 years ago now?
No, that was when I took the exam, it was 2013. It was the end of 2013. So that's
Oh, a
almost
long
9
time
years
ago.
ago now. Almost,
Okay,
yeah.
that's exciting. So that's your journey. Wow, I'm really, gosh, I learned a lot today. Been
It was
thinking.
a long and hard journey for sure. Yeah, I don't recommend it to a lot of people.
Well, I was gonna say it rules out a lot of the Korean Americans growing up here. Just say there's no
No,
way I
right.
would
It was
pass
hard
that
for
'cause I
me
wouldn't
too.
know.
It was really
Yeah,
hard for me.
yeah.
And
So
for our final interview, they asked me like, "You weren't educated here,
yeah,
so what makes you think you can make Korean dramas?" And I was like, "Well, that's true." And it like while I was growing up, I didn't really go back to Korean culture that much because I wanted to be able to learn English. Like if I
sure.
was going to go back to my comfort zone, I thought that that would slow me down in school.
Mm,
So a lot of the time I was just watching like American shows and Canadian shows because I grew up in Vancouver.
mhm.
And so I missed out on a lot of Korean culture development like during my middle school and high school years
Sure.
and also college years too.
Hmm.
So I was like, I was shocked that they just asked me that kind of straight up. But also I was like, well, I don't think Korean dramas are going to be just for Korea anymore because that was kind of when it was starting to
Yeah,
be a little bit
2013.
global, like the Korean idols and the K-pop was starting to
Mhm.
grow. Like that was when it was like Big Bang and
What?
21. So
Yes,
it was
right.
just
You were
kind
so
of like
you
right
predicted
on the
some of
cusp.
this, right?
Right.
Good for you to say
So
that.
I was
What
like,
they say, I think,
it
guess they
was
like that
really
answer.
right. It was like Gangnam Style, and it was
Yeah.
just kind of just starting around then. So I was like, it's not going to be local anymore. So I don't think you should focus on just kind of what we're good at. And I think if you want to make the same Korean dramas, then that's fine. But if you want to make different stuff, then I think, it's not bad to have a
Great,
different perspective from a different culture.
great answer. And then look at where we are now.
Yeah, right. Right,
I mean,
exactly. I
of
didn't
course,
think we
half
were going
my
to get
friends
here
are
this
Korean and
fast.
Asian, but half my friends are white, black, and I
Right.
love talking to them
Right.
about K-drama. So so you basically hit the nail on the head. That's amazing. Thanks for sharing that story. So you started then, and then let's talk about your journey then. What's it been like? Are there a lot of females in your role as a PD?
When I started out, like in 2013, when I did my first K-drama and then the variety shows, it was mostly male, just like being on set,
Yeah.
all the most of the crew, unless it was like makeup, wardrobe, unless those kind of departments are very female heavy. I don't,
Mhm.
just I don't know why that is. It just happens that way.
Sure.
And a lot of, the assistant directors and the main directors weren't female. I've actually not had the chance to work with a main female director yet.
Oh, so it's still kind of you're okay. So you can basically it's still male dominated is what I'm hearing.
Right. But I
Okay.
think from kind of my, I don't want to say generation, but from my generation onwards, they kind of hired more females than males. So a lot of the assistant directors we have way more females than males right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I interview a lot of the applicants now. I interviewed them last year and the year before, and there's a lot of women, and they're so much better at interviewing. It's insane.
That's good.
And we end up picking more females just because they're better at this process than guys are. So I
Mm-hmm.
think it's starting to change now, and a lot of the crew members are now female, even on K-drama sets. And I think I spoke with the actors recently, and they were like, the fact that you're female, like I was the main director for my short series, the fact that you're female, your assistant director, one of whom is female,
Mm-hmm.
and like my script supervisor was female, and there were so many female crew members around, and it was mostly female actors because it was a female story. So they were like, the environment here on this set is totally different from this other thing that I'm shooting with like concurrently. So I think it's a very different atmosphere now than what it used to be, even just like 5-6 years ago. It's very
But
different.
when you say different, like, do you feel like is it more, I don't know, comfortable or just
No,
innovative?
definitely, yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. It definitely, I think, more collaborative, more comfortable. It's safer, I think, because there was a period of like the whole Korean Me Too stuff where
Yes.
I think it put a lot of people kind of on alert a lot of guys on alert, like what they used to do doesn't fly anymore.
Yeah.
And it definitely changed. It's definitely changed for the better, I think.
That's good. Right. Just watching being accountable for behavior.
Right, definitely.
Yeah.
It's like it's on the front page of every script now. They have like behavior guidelines. Like you can't say this kind of stuff, like this counts as harassment, and if this happens to you on set, like please contact this person, and you know, we're always open. So it was like it was very kind of emphasized starting a couple of years ago, and I think it made a difference. Definitely.
Yeah, I would think so. The behavior. So that said, well, what was your first? You just said your first K-drama that you worked on.
It was called Miss Korea.
Okay, Miss Korea and MBC.
Yeah, Lee Sung-gyun and Lee Yeon-hee.
Okay, that one I did not see. What
yeah, it's quite old. It aired the same time as My Love from the Stars, which is one of my
that one
favorite.
I did see.
It was my favorite K-drama. Like it was one of my favorite of all time. My Love from the
Star actually brought me back to, so I had a break because I was raising kids. So you would think raising kids, I'd watch K-dramas. No, I was just so busy raising kids and I put K-dramas on hold. But then My Love from the Star brought me back to K-dramas. I'm like, oh my gosh. Because it was like a one-up caliber. I mean, they were all really good, but it was that.
No, it was totally different, I think, from all the other shows.
I mean, what's it? Chun Ji-yeon just kind of, I don't know. She was just funny. I think she was a little bit out there that I was like, oh, this is kind of trendy, right? Trending. And then
right.
You know, just really, you know, having that swell. So Miss Korea. And then what was your first one at JTBC?
Oh God, it was, I want to say it's called, the English title is Listen to Love, but I don't know if that's the right title. But that was also with Lee Sung-gyun and Song Ji-ho. I don't know if you know them.
Song Ji-ho, of course I know Song Ji-ho, but Lee Sung-gyun
from My Mister, the same guy.
Oh my gosh, that's what I thought. What? He's one of my favorites.
Right.
I love him. Was My Mister produced by JTBC?
Was what? Oh no, that was TVN.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, well, you said My Mister just because that's one of my ultimate favorite K-dramas.
Right.
Oh, I'll watch that like every day, every other day. Yeah, it's very popular. So then, how many have you worked on at your time at JTBC as being a PD there where you are now?
I wrote this down earlier. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I worked on 8. This one that I directed is my 9th. So.
Oh, I can't wait. And this is one when's it coming out? The 9th one?
I actually don't know. I think it's going to be around May.
Okay. That's soon. Yeah. Who was in it?
Jung Yo-won. She's from, oh God, I don't know what you would have seen. Jung Yo-won. I think it was called Witch's Court.
Okay. Well, I probably know.
My name, she was popular from, My Name is Kim Samsun.
Oh, okay. So I'm not very good with actresses' names or actors' names, but this is your next one coming up. And then what was the previous one that you worked on, law school?
No, that was Forecasting Love and Weather. That was the most recent.
Oh, that's done? Because I'm currently watching that.
No, it finishes next week, but we wrapped shooting quite a while ago.
Okay,
in January.
That's cool. So you got to name them. You said 8. Name the ones. Name all of them. We want to give you some credit.
Okay, so it was Listen to Love. That's what it's called. And then Hello My 20s.
Cute.
But it's called. I don't know if people refer to it as that or Age of
Youth.
It's kind of they do
that
both.
one I know. It's called Hello My 20s. Yeah.
Right. And I worked on Welcome to Waikiki.
Oh.
And fun. I did The Light in Your Eyes.
Oh, that's a good one.
And Law School. And there was one called Diary of a Prosecutor, but that one's on Disney Plus.
Yeah, okay, and I've heard of that one. Did not.
And Law School, and then Forecasting Love and Weather, and that's
very super cool. What are you most proud of in your work? Yeah, like, and this is something that easy. Well, okay, so let's talk Korean culture for a second. Korean Americans, we still struggle even having brought up here to even talk about our successes a little bit and study psychology. So me being in mental health, I do coach a lot of professionals that it's important to be proud of the work we do. And we don't do that enough. Otherwise,
Right.
so that's why I asked that question, because I really want to hear it. Like, what are you most proud of? Yeah.
I want to say light in your eyes, just because I don't know, that it was a very kind of pivotal moment for me in a lot of ways, just because I was so involved in everything, starting from pre-production to post-production, and just the bond we had on set was incredible. So I think, and I think locally, that's probably the most kind of impactful show. I think that I've gotten so much feedback about that show,
Yeah,
even till
it's a
now.
huge hit, even globally.
Right. And it won awards, but it was that, and then it was law school a little bit, because law school, I think that kind of caught the wave. I guess it was like either right before Squid Game or right after. I think it was right before Squid Game.
Squid Game, and it's on Netflix, so you kind of have
right.
Yeah.
And it was like when Korean drama started going on Netflix, and was simultaneously episode, like week by week.
Yeah.
And I had a lot of friends and a lot of like just random, global fans, and we talked about it a lot on Clubhouse. I don't know if you remember. I think that's how we met. Right. So law school is definitely one of those projects that I was like, okay, people are actually enjoying what we make here. So I think light in your eyes in law school is kind of, I think,
proud moments. Well, I was gonna say,
proud moments.
Well, when you're saying people are impacted by that, tell me what they're sharing with you though. Like, what's the impact they're having? The story, the actors, I mean, obviously all of it, but what are some of the things they're sharing with you?
I mean, the light in your eyes, it was the story. A lot of it was like, oh my God, it was one of the first shows in a long time that I watched with my parents. And that's kind of what they told me, because a lot of the shows now, the ratings and the viewership is very, I don't want to say divisive, but it's very different among different age groups. So like, you don't have one show that everyone from like teenagers to like their 60s is watching all together.
Really?
Like usually people who are like, in their 40s, 50s, 60s, or 50 and above, they're watching this one show. I don't like Gentlemen and the
Young Lady and Gentlemen. I'm watching that, but I also like the young ones, like Forecasting Love and Weather, and
Right. I think you're of the generation that can do both.
Yeah.
But like people who are, like teenagers and people in their 20s aren't really watching a lot of the, Young Lady and the Gentleman.
Dramas. Yeah.
Right. But there are very few, like the dramas that everyone watches is very few in between. I think like My Mister was one of them. That was kind of,
and Light in Your Eyes, I think it appeals to a vast audience.
Right. So that one, I got a lot of that kind of feedback, and it didn't matter whether you were male or female. It was kind of everyone could relate. So I thought that was pretty cool.
I'm a huge fan of both of them, but I love the actress.
Right, definitely. And law school.
Oh, sorry, go ahead. Let's talk about
right. And law school was more about like, young people and global fans, and saying that they enjoyed the story. And I don't think there had been very many dramas that dealt with law school, because it's kind of like a new system here. It's not very old. So I think it might have been new for people. Yeah.
Well, and so speaking of which, this is going to break down a little bit. What does a PD do? Like, hopefully it's not I mean, I imagine all the things that you do, but I'd love to break it down. What's your job like on a daily basis when you're filming a K-drama?
Well, we're basically producer directors. We're assistant directors until we become the main director. Until we like start directing, we're the assistant directors. So we do everything, like we do everything from pre-production to post-production, and it depends kind of on the show what your role is. It kind of changes depending on who is directing and kind of what the director wants you to do, and like how much they delegate and what they delegate to you. So you're really just there to literally assist the director in whatever he or she wants you to do. But you're preparing the props and the art, and so you're deciding everything from everything from how many extras you're going to have on the day, and you're deciding on what location to go to and how to get there and when to get there. Like you're setting up all the meetings, like when you're going to do the first script read, when you're going to meet with the post-production team for the first time, when you're going to look at like the new, I guess, the music, when you're going to listen to the music, when you're going to do the final editing. And so everything related to schedule and everything related to the actual show, you have to know.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So you're in all these different Kako Talk rooms for every single department. If you're the assistant director, you're in the room for the costume department. You're in the room for, you know, makeup. You're in the room for the art department. You're in the room for the post. So you're kind of literally dialed into everything the director is dialed in at the same time, and you're making sure that they don't forget to do this, or like you're reminding them, or you're giving them feedback or suggestions, and it's just, yeah, literally everything. It's everything.
And okay, when you're filming a K-drama, what's the general process? How many months does it generally take? Is there like an average number of months?
It used to be, before we had the 42-hour week like labor law. Before we had that, we used to pull all-nighters all the time.
I did hear that.
And so the production schedule used to be very short. Like I think Waikiki we finished in like 4 or 5 months.
Okay.
I really only worked on it for half a year. Well, yeah, but we finished filming in like 2 or 3 months, which doesn't happen anymore. Now it's like a whole year. It takes up almost a whole year from pre-production to, like, I guess when the final episode airs, because you're with the show until then, basically.
Yeah, and
but now you have to, now casting is really hard because there's so many Korean dramas and so few actors. So you have to book actors like years in advance now, apparently.
Like,
and
the
it's
really
just getting harder and
ones,
harder.
like, oh, can we get you for 2024?
Right, exactly. Apparently they're booked until, the really popular ones are booked until next year. So either you kind of have to go in between when they're not shooting this one and this one, or you're literally just waiting for forever.
Oh, so there's space in the Korean drama acting market for a lot of us. I'm just
Yes, I mean, I want to be very encouraging to anyone who's like looking to get into the acting. I mean, it's kind of like a pyramid.
Yeah.
There's so many people who want to do it. Right. It's just really hard to break through that one ceiling and just kind of get noticed. But there are so few people at the top.
That's true. But
and they're so in demand. Yeah.
Right? But then you see them, like, I see, like, I don't know, just I forget who, but they're side characters, and then they become the lead 2 years later. And that's cool to see. So interesting. Okay, so you heard it here, folks. If you want to go into K-drama acting, brush up on your Korean.
Definitely.
So that's exciting. So then my thing is, if you're with the K-drama for a year, you pretty much bond with, I mean, you must know them in and out, folks. Do you get close as a cast and a crew?
I mean, the crew definitely. The cast, it kind of, it depends on the person, because some people are more private than others. But I think if you're around them for, now production itself, shooting itself takes 6 to 7 months, so it's kind of hard to not be close. But we're also just like kind of, you come and then you shoot and then they go home, so it's hard to break the ice a little bit sometimes.
Personal things, gotcha. Yeah.
And also with COVID now, we're not able to have like, dinner together after the first script read. We're not allowed to, have a drink, like, because you can't get together we couldn't get together past 9 p.m.
Yeah.
And also you can't get more than 6 people together in a room. So it was, I think, the kind of familial atmosphere kind of dissipated for a little bit just because of COVID. And I think it's going to come back once all this blows over, but I don't know if people are already used to not having like the wrap parties or beginning parties. Like,
it's nice to celebrate, right? Hey, we're done.
No, definitely. So I think those are going to come back, but I think we used to have kind of parties in between or in the beginning so that everyone gets to know each other, like know who's who in what department, like know who to ask for what. But we're also wearing masks on set all the time, or at least the crew members are.
Sure.
So you can't really memorize each other's faces, and like, the actors can't really talk to them freely just because of COVID, because they're not wearing masks and they don't know if this person. So it's kind of, we've been more professional the past 2 years, so it's been harder to get close.
That makes sense. Yeah. What's your favorite part of the job? Like, what floats your boat, gets you excited?
Oh God. Oh, that's really hard. Not because every part is great, but it's because every part is hard. I think shooting is definitely the most stressful. I like it when everything is over and I'm in the edit room by myself, although it's kind of just grueling, just being alone with yourself and just kind of like hitting yourself over the head. Like, why didn't I
Like right
see
now, 'cause
this, or
you're in
why
that
didn't I do
headspace,
this?
right?
Right now. And I'm like, I'm so tired of looking at this. Like, I wish I had done this differently. But then
Oh,
this is also just less stressful because you're not in, kind of having to deal with 100 people just waiting for you to say something. That's
that
just, I
is
think, way more
stressful.
stressful. So shooting is definitely, it's got its fun moments, especially when things are clicking and everything is going right and everyone's actually having a good time. That part is really fun. And just when I love it when there's just good acting and I'm just like, I'm capturing good acting. There's nothing like it really. Because you don't know how they're gonna act until they get there. Like
Mhm.
reading the script together is different from seeing them in costume, in
Sure.
location, and seeing how they want to move. And like actors kind of just come up with ideas once they're in the space and once they're
Mhm.
kind of in character, they decide that they want to do things a different way sometimes. And that's much better than how it's written in the script, I think. Most of the time, I tend to trust their instincts.
Yeah, yeah.
So those moments, I think, definitely
It's like
are
art. You're seeing
super,
art
super
created.
fun. Right.
How about the writers? Now, are the writers very involved with you guys throughout the filming and everything?
Usually in Korean dramas, no, because we don't have like writers, not very many writers have writers' rooms. They just write by themselves.
Oh, interesting.
Because most American shows have a lot of writers, and
Yeah.
this person
Yeah.
writes that episode, and you have one showrunner that kind of does everything.
Mm-hmm.
But kind of for K dramas, the showrunner is the director
I
or the
see.
writer. It kind of depends on who the writer is and who the
Oh,
director is.
okay.
Sometimes it's the writer that acts as the showrunner, and they're very involved in the casting and all that.
Yeah.
If they're especially if they're a big name writer like
Right.
Kim
Like,
Eun-suk 작가님
yeah.
or
I was
yeah, yeah,
like, I
yeah.
was just to name her.
Right,
Writes
right, right.
everything brilliant. Yeah.
Right, because she's just she's
Mhm.
the best we have.
Wow.
I've heard that she's very involved in everything
Makes sense because
from
she probably
casting to
visualizes.
editing. Right,
Yeah.
and she's in the edit room with the director and asking people to do reshoots, and just because she is such an influential
Big
figure.
name.
So if
Yeah.
you're doing a show that's written by her, then that comes with the territory.
Yeah. And it's pretty,
But if
I
you're
would think it's
right,
privileged. Like, ooh,
right,
she wrote this and we're going to be in it. What's the last thing she wrote? What is the last thing she wrote?
the king,
Okay, The King. Okay. Yeah.
yeah.
Um,
Um,
cool. Okay. So because I wonder if the writers are ever offended when things go off script, or how does that work?
I'm sure they are sometimes, but it depends on who the writer is. Like
Yeah.
if they're like offended and will they actually be able to say anything?
Right. Right.
That
'Cause
also depends on who the director is.
Mhm.
So
Interesting.
um
That's super cool to learn about this. So then that said, psychology, let's get to the psychology before we wrap up. Cause I look at K dramas from a mental health perspective
right.
and I brought it in because it was so natural because everyone loves K dramas, or I don't want to say everyone. It's very popular and it's a way to tie in mental health and your identity and everything. So being a psychology major 10 years ago, because you're about to celebrate your 10-year college anniversary, college reunion.
Gosh.
Ever use any of that? Like, how does that come into play in your work at all? Working with people, just curious, you know?
I mean, I used to write in my like application essays to, I guess, jobs and talking about the fact that I majored in psychology. And I said this in the interview too. I was like, I majored in psychology because I knew I was going to work with people no matter what profession I was in. So even if I went to law school, even if I went to med school, even if I do film, and film is so much about like the human experience, also like the story is about the human experience, but you're also working with hundreds of people at once. And if you're the director, I kind of realized this, kind of just came face to face with it while I was doing this show. You are talking to so many different people, and so many different people want your opinion, but everyone has a different way of communicating or expressing themselves, is expressing their anxiety or expressing kind of concerns or suggestions. So you kind of have to know the nuances of how, like reading between the lines of, is this person really saying what they mean, or like what is it that they're trying to say to me by saying this? Like,
Noonchi.
can you take it right? Exactly. And Noonchi is like something we say Noonchi 있다 없다, like you have Noonchi or you don't, or sometimes you say Noonchi 보다 안 보다, like are you actively using your Noonchi or not?
Yeah.
So sometimes I'm like of the type where I thought at least that I didn't really use my Noonchi a lot because that just kind of prevents me from, I guess, doing what I have to do sometimes.
I see.
Just as a director, because if you constantly read the room and know how much everyone is suffering in this very moment, it's kind of hard to do your job.
Sure.
Because you have to carry this crew until 3 or 4 a.m. because you have to get what you need.
Right.
And I'm like, I understand this is so hard. I understand everyone is tired and cold and hungry, but I have to get this. So if I'm reading the room all the time, it's just like I'm just gonna be in my shell.
Yeah.
And I just felt bad for so much of the shoot just because I thought I was putting everyone through like just misery and just being in the cold and winter and snow. And
yeah, I imagine those wintry K-dramas can't be easy.
Right. And especially because I was preparing for this one, and when we started writing it, I was like, I want this to be all covered in snow, and I want it to look like Sapporo and like Love Letter, and everything is covered in snow. And I thought it was just very romantic, but once you get there, I was like, ugh, I will not make people shoot in the winter ever again, just because everyone is so cold.
Yeah.
So I guess with psychology, it's kind of a gift and a curse at the same time, knowing how people feel and just like being in tune with people.
Yeah.
Just as a director, because we talk a lot about like MBTI and the types, like Korean people love that stuff.
Right. They do.
Just there's
I know mine.
Like a religion.
ENFJ.
I'm an ENFJ.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
What does
so
that
because
mean?
we have that F.
Yeah.
Right. We have that F. We kind of know what people are feeling, and it's helpful when I'm talking to an actor.
Sorry, if you have the N too, you're going to be intuitive and know that too. Mine are both very strong on all of them. So you're right. I love that you share that you have boundaries.
Right. It's nice to have that kind of ability. I don't want to say ability, but it's nice to have that trait when you're talking to an actor and when you're kind of trying to give them direction and say, I don't want to be like, I want you to do it like this. Like, that's just really, because they're not, robots. They're not like programmable things. So you kind of have to explain to them, I think if I was in this situation, I would feel this way. Or if I know this actor, I would just, and I know that this person needs like a more specific example, or if I need them to say, oh, remember when this happened to you? Or remember when this happened to us and we thought this, or you thought this. I feel like it's kind of that sort of thing.
Oh. Yeah. So you're bringing in like personal touch or stories or experiences. That's really cool. This is right. I'm like eating all this up. I'm like, that's so cool. Too bad I'll fail the test. Just saying. My gosh. Unless they ever open it up to Korean Americans.
Right. And I think psychology is really important. Just in dealing with people. I've never thought about it from like a mental health perspective, because Koreans are still not very good at talking about that. I feel like it's not part of our language yet.
But it's so funny, Christine. Do you know how many K-dramas show it? That's like, yeah. It's amazing to me. These writers are in touch, or even the PDs and directors know how to express it, which is why I find K-dramas fascinating, that in Korean culture, it's still not, you're still on the cusp of talking about it, but then yet you make these beautiful K-dramas that we're like, can you just emulate this in Korean society? You know what I mean? And you're talking about,
right.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of Korean people, I think from like older generations, they know all different types of people. Like they've seen this kind of person, just because they've been through so much, and like they've been through war, they've been through literally like all the extremes of human, emotion and experience. So nothing really phases them. I feel like Korean people aren't really phased by a lot of stuff. So they don't really ask for help. Like they don't necessarily think that it's like a problem.
Sure.
Or like there's a sickness or like an illness. They refuse to kind of acknowledge it as an illness. They're like, oh, you're going through this because of this reason, because this is happening in your life, and you're gonna get over it, you're gonna get older, and it's not gonna seem like a big deal, because that's kind of how we've been raised and how our parents have been raised.
Yes.
So I think Korean people tend to blame themselves or their experience.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I feel this way because I did this. Like, I feel this way because I failed this test.
Yeah.
Or so I don't think we're used to asking for help kind of in that, I want to say, arena.
But yes, but I hope that I hope people are watching the K-dramas going, oh, let me learn from that. Oh, that this character is going to therapy. Oh my goodness. You see this in K-dramas, and I'm sitting there going, this is fascinating to me. Thanks for watching, folks. Christina, it was awesome having you. Oh my gosh, we just had this like deep conversation about K-dramas and all. I cannot wait to have you back in the future, and look out for her new K-drama coming out in the next month or so. Woo! Awesome.
I'll probably self-promote shamelessly. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Bye.